I'm 70. Living has become unaffordable, except for the rich. In my 70 years, I've seen America change in unimaginable ways, both for better and for worse. But as I sit here reflecting on life, one thing has become abundantly clear. For many of us who've worked hard all our lives, the cost of simply existing has spiraled out of reach. Living has become unaffordable, especially for older Americans like you and me who aren't wealthy. This is not just an economic issue, it's a deeply personal one, affecting our dignity, security, and peace of mind. Let's unpack why this is happening and, more importantly, what we can do to navigate these challenging times. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. 1. The rising cost of living, a crisis for seniors. At 70, I've lived through decades of change, some remarkable, others heartbreaking. Yet nothing compares to the financial strain so many of us face today. The rising cost of living has become a crisis, particularly for seniors who've worked hard all their lives, only to find that their golden years are tarnished by economic hardship. This isn't just about numbers, it's about the emotional toll of trying to make ends meet, the anxiety of stretching every dollar, and the fear of what tomorrow might bring. For many of us, the promise of retirement once symbolized freedom, a time to enjoy family, travel, hobbies, and simple pleasures. But now, it feels more like a trap. The very necessities of life, housing, healthcare, food, and utilities have become unaffordable luxuries. And unlike younger generations, we don't have the luxury of time to recover financially. We're not looking for handouts. We're looking for fairness, dignity, and a chance to live with peace of mind. Housing costs have spiraled out of control. For those of us who still have a mortgage or rely on rental housing, monthly payments often consume the bulk of our fixed incomes. Seniors who had hoped to downsize or move to affordable retirement communities are finding that even the smallest homes come with price tags far beyond their reach. And for those who've lost their homes, whether due to rising rents, medical bills, or unexpected financial setbacks, homelessness is not just a distant fear, it's a reality. Living in a car or RV or relying on shelters has become an all too common story for older Americans who once thought they'd spend their later years comfortably. Then there's healthcare, an essential but increasingly unaffordable expense. Medicare offers some relief, but it's far from comprehensive. Prescription drug prices remain outrageously high, forcing many seniors to choose between buying medication and putting food on the table. Skipping doses, delaying doctor visits, or going treatments altogether have become coping strategies. But at what cost to our health and longevity? We've spent our lives contributing to this system, yet when we need it most, it feels like the safety net has been pulled out from under us. Food insecurity, something many of us never imagined facing in our later years, is another harsh reality. Grocery bills have soared, and simple staples, bread, milk, eggs, now feel like luxuries. Inflation, which was once a distant economic term, now hits us directly every time we visit the store. For those who rely on food stamps or food pantries, the stigma and frustration of not having enough to eat can be overwhelming. Eating healthily, so critical to aging well, often takes a backseat to simply eating enough. Utilities are another relentless burden. Heating a home in winter or cooling it in summer has become a question of survival for many seniors, particularly in extreme climates. We find ourselves sitting in the cold or sweltering heat, worried about whether the next utility bill will push us further into debt. These are not decisions anyone should have to make, especially after a lifetime of hard work. Even the smallest joys, taking a trip to visit family, treating grandchildren to a small gift, or enjoying an occasional night out feel out of reach for many. Instead of living our later years with fulfillment and pride, we're burdened by guilt and worry, questioning every dollar spent. The mental and emotional toll of these constant financial struggles is profound. Anxiety, depression, and a sense of hopelessness weigh heavily on seniors who feel abandoned by a system that promised security but delivered stress. The most heartbreaking part of this crisis is its unfairness. We've contributed to society for decades, raising families, working tirelessly, and paying into systems like Social Security and Medicare. We've lived through wars, economic downturns, and countless challenges, yet we persevered with the hope that our efforts would provide a stable foundation for our later years. To now find ourselves scraping by, often feeling invisible or forgotten, is a deep injustice. But let's not forget that resilience is in our nature. We've weathered storms before, and we will weather this one too. However, we must acknowledge the reality of our struggles, not as a sign of weakness, but as a call to action. It's time to advocate for change, for policies that respect and support the generations who built this country. And it's time to lean on one another, sharing resources, wisdom, and support to navigate these challenges together. The rising cost of living is not just a crisis of economics, it's a crisis of humanity. We deserve better, not because of entitlement, but because of the lives we've lived and the contributions we've made. Let's demand fairness and dignity for all seniors, ensuring that our later years are not defined by financial despair, but by the comfort and respect we've earned. 2. Why is this happening? As I reflect on the financial struggles so many of us face today, I can't help but wonder, why is this happening? Why have our golden years, years we were told would be peaceful and secure, become so fraught with uncertainty and hardship? The answers are complex, rooted in systems and decisions that often feel far removed from our daily lives, yet directly impact every aspect of how we live. At its core, this crisis is a reflection of systemic inequities that have been building for decades. Corporations, banks, and policymakers have made choices that prioritize profit over people, creating a chasm between the wealthy and the rest of us. Credit card companies, for example, are quick to extend loans and credit lines during times of economic growth, often targeting those least able to repay them. During the pandemic, when government stimulus checks temporarily padded bank accounts, these companies handed out credit cards like candy, banking on the illusion of financial stability. But once that money ran out, the bills came due, and for many, repayment was impossible. These companies knew this would happen, but they continued their practices because they could shift the burden onto taxpayers or write off their losses. Meanwhile, those of us caught in the trap are left with damaged credit, mounting debt, and no clear way out. The housing market is another glaring example of why life has become so unaffordable. For years, we've been told that home ownership is the cornerstone of the American dream, a way to build stability and equity. Yet, housing prices have risen so dramatically that even modest homes are out of reach for many. For those of us who rent, the story is just as grim. Landlords, facing their own rising costs, pass those expenses on to tenants, creating a cycle of unaffordability. And what happens when you can no longer pay your rent or mortgage? You face the devastating prospect of losing your home, a prospect that has become all too real for countless seniors. Healthcare is no different. It's an essential part of life, especially as we age, yet it feels designed to work against us. Prescription drug prices are so high that many are forced to ration their medications or go without altogether. Medicare, while a lifeline, is often inadequate to cover the full scope of our needs. And for those without substantial savings, even a single medical emergency can spell financial ruin. These aren't abstract issues. They're choices made by pharmaceutical companies, insurance providers, and policymakers who prioritize profits over the well being of millions of Americans. Inflation, too, plays a significant role in our struggles. It's often spoken about in terms that feel distant in technical percentages and economic models, but for us, it's painfully tangible. It's the rising cost of groceries, gas, utilities, and every other necessity. It's the shrinking value of the Social Security checks we rely on to survive. And while some inflation is natural, the kind we're experiencing now feels like a tidal wave, leaving us scrambling to adjust without the resources to do so. Behind these systemic issues lies a deeper truth. We are living in a time of profound economic inequality. While the wealthiest enjoy tax breaks and financial windfalls, the rest of us are left to bear the burden of their excess. Corporations find ways to avoid paying their fair share, using loopholes and write offs to shield their profits. Meanwhile, everyday Americans, particularly seniors on fixed incomes, are asked to shoulder the rising costs through taxes, reduced services, and higher fees. This imbalance isn't accidental. It's the result of decades of policies that have favored the few at the expense of the many. There's also an emotional toll to consider. When you've spent a lifetime working hard, raising a family, contributing to your community, and paying into systems like Social Security and Medicare, it's heartbreaking to find yourself in a position where none of that seems to matter. It feels like a betrayal, as though the promises made to us, promises of security, dignity, and care, have been broken. And while it's easy to blame ourselves or feel ashamed for struggling, the truth is that these challenges are not our fault. They are the result of a system that has failed to prioritize the well-being of its people. This is why it's happening. Because profit has been placed above people, because short-term gains have been valued over long-term stability, and because those in power have chosen to ignore the struggles of everyday Americans. But understanding the reasons behind this crisis is the first step toward addressing it. We must hold these systems accountable, demand change, and refuse to accept a status quo that leaves so many of us behind. As I write this, I'm reminded of the resilience and strength of our generation. We've faced challenges before, and we've overcome them through determination, solidarity, and a commitment to doing what's right. This crisis is no different. While the road ahead may be difficult, I believe we have the power to create a future where living isn't just for the rich, it's for all of us. And that begins by asking the hard questions, seeking the real answers, and standing together to demand the change we deserve. 3. Practical advice for seniors. When life feels like it's closing in, when bills pile up, prices soar, and the security you've worked your whole life to build feels like it's slipping through your fingers. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. But even in the face of these challenges, there are steps we can take to regain control, preserve our dignity, and carve out a life that feels stable and meaningful. It's not easy, but it's possible. Practical, thoughtful actions can make all the difference in navigating these difficult times. The first step is acknowledging where we are financially. For many seniors, the thought of sitting down and analyzing expenses feels daunting, but it's an essential foundation for making informed decisions. Begin with a clear budget. Write down every source of income, whether it's Social Security, pensions, or part-time work, and compare it against your monthly expenses. Look carefully at what's essential versus what's discretionary. The act of seeing everything laid out can bring clarity, even if the numbers feel discouraging at first. One strategy that has helped many is tackling debt head-on, especially credit card debt, which often comes with high interest rates that can quickly spiral out of control. A method like the snowball approach, paying off the smallest debt first, then rolling those payments into larger debts, can build momentum and provide a sense of accomplishment. For those with significant balances across multiple cards, transferring them to a credit card with a 0% introductory interest rate can be a lifeline. It gives you breathing room, allowing you to focus on paying down the principal without the relentless accumulation of interest. If these options feel out of reach, consider reaching out to your creditors directly. Many companies are surprisingly willing to negotiate lower rates or set up payment plans, especially for longtime customers. Beyond tackling debt, there are ways to stretch every dollar further. If housing costs have become an overwhelming burden, it might be time to explore alternatives. Downsizing to a smaller, more affordable space is not just a financial decision. It can also bring peace of mind by reducing the responsibilities of homeownership. For some, moving in with family or exploring senior living communities with shared amenities can create a support network that goes beyond just financial relief. These decisions are deeply personal, but they're worth considering if your current situation feels unsustainable. Healthcare, often one of the largest expenses for seniors, requires careful management. Take full advantage of Medicare's offerings and explore supplemental insurance plans to fill in the gaps. Many states and local organizations also offer programs to help with prescription costs or medical equipment. Don't hesitate to ask your healthcare providers about generic medication options or assistance programs. Sometimes the resources are there, but you must advocate for yourself to access them. Food is another area where costs can quickly add up, but there are resources available to help. Programs like SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, are designed to ensure no one goes hungry. And many local food banks and senior centers offer meals or grocery assistance. Eating well is critical for maintaining health and energy, so don't let pride stop you from seeking the help you deserve. Remember, these programs exist because someone, somewhere, believed that no senior should go without. Community can also be a powerful source of strength during tough times. Isolation often compounds financial stress, making problems feel insurmountable. Reach out to friends, neighbors, or local senior groups. Sharing experiences, tips, and even resources can create a sense of solidarity and mutual support. Many churches, community centers, and nonprofits offer workshops, activities, or financial counseling tailored specifically for seniors. The simple act of connecting with others who understand your struggles can lighten the emotional burden. It's also worth considering opportunities to supplement your income, even if it's just a little. Many seniors find part-time or freelance work not only helps financially, but also provides a sense of purpose and connection, whether it's babysitting, tutoring, consulting in your field of expertise, or selling handmade crafts. There are countless ways to leverage your skills and experience. Programs that match seniors with flexible job opportunities can be a great starting point. As we navigate these challenges, it's important to remember that asking for help is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of strength. Whether it's reaching out to a family member, a financial advisor, or a local organization, there's power in recognizing when you need support. Many of us were raised to believe in self-reliance, but the truth is, no one gets through life entirely on their own. Accepting help when it's offered and seeking it when it's not can open doors you didn't even know existed. Ultimately, the key to surviving and thriving in these difficult times lies in taking small, consistent steps. Focus on what you can control, even if it feels like just a little. Celebrate every victory, no matter how small: a debt paid off, a new connection made, or a week without unexpected expenses. These moments remind us that progress is possible and that we are capable of overcoming even the toughest challenges. Life in our later years was meant to be a time of peace and enjoyment, and while the current reality may not always reflect that, it doesn't mean we have to give up on the dream. By approaching our challenges with practicality, persistence, and a willingness to adapt, we can find ways to reclaim our dignity and stability. We've faced so much throughout our lives: wars, recessions, personal hardships. And we've come through it all. This is just another chapter, and with resilience and resourcefulness, we can write it on our terms. 4. Policy changes we should demand. As seniors, we have spent decades contributing to this country, working, raising families, paying taxes, and building communities. Yet, as the cost of living continues to rise and economic pressures mount, it feels as though the systems we helped create have turned their backs on us. It doesn't have to be this way. We have the power through our voices and collective action to demand the changes necessary to ensure that no one's later years are defined by financial struggle or insecurity. The first and most urgent demand is for a reevaluation of Social Security. For many of us, Social Security is the cornerstone of our retirement income, yet it is increasingly insufficient. The cost of living adjustments, COLAs, applied to Social Security benefits are based on outdated measures that fail to capture the true inflation faced by seniors, especially in areas like healthcare and housing. Policymakers must adopt more accurate metrics that reflect the actual costs impacting retirees. It's not just an adjustment, it's about fairness. We've paid into this system for decades, trusting it would be there for us. Now it's time for it to deliver on that promise. Healthcare policy is another critical area demanding immediate reform. For too long, pharmaceutical companies and healthcare providers have prioritized profits over patients, driving up the costs of life-saving medications and essential care. Prescription drug prices must be capped, ensuring that no senior has to choose between buying medication and buying food. Medicare should be expanded to include comprehensive coverage for vision, dental, and hearing, basic healthcare needs that are inexplicably left out. Moreover, long-term care, often a crippling expense, must become more accessible. Seniors should not have to drain their life savings or go bankrupt to receive the care they need. Affordable housing must also take center stage in policy discussions. The skyrocketing cost of housing has pushed many older Americans to the brink, with some losing their homes altogether. Governments at every level must invest in affordable senior housing, including tax credits for developers who build age-friendly communities and subsidies for low-income seniors. Rent control policies and property tax relief for seniors can provide immediate relief, allowing us to stay in our homes without fear of being priced out. Tax policy reform is another essential demand. For years, corporations and the wealthiest individuals have benefited from loopholes and deductions that leave them paying a fraction of what they owe. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans, especially those of us on fixed incomes, bear the brunt of the tax burden. This imbalance must be corrected. Corporations that write off billions in bad loans or exploit tax shelters must be held accountable. It's time for a fair tax system that ensures the wealthiest pay their share, relieving some of the pressure on middle and lower income households. Beyond specific policies, we must also advocate for stronger consumer protections. Credit card companies, banks, and other financial institutions must face stricter regulations to prevent predatory lending practices. During the pandemic, we saw how these institutions extended credit recklessly, knowing full well that many borrowers would struggle to repay. The result has been a surge in defaults and a growing burden on seniors who relied on credit to cover basic expenses. Regulators must step in to ensure that lending practices are responsible and fair, protecting vulnerable populations from being exploited. Another area of urgent reform is the safety net for involuntary homelessness. While it's true that some people may choose to live outside traditional housing, many seniors experiencing homelessness are there because of circumstances beyond their control: loss of income, medical emergencies, or natural disasters. We need policies that prioritize helping these individuals get back on their feet, including expanded shelter programs, job placement initiatives, and mental health services. At the same time, resources must be focused where they're needed most, ensuring that those who want help can access it without unnecessary barriers or delays. Education and awareness also play a critical role in driving change. Seniors often feel left out of the policy-making process, yet we are one of the most politically engaged groups in the country. We need to use our voices to demand that lawmakers prioritize issues affecting older Americans. Writing letters, attending town halls, and voting in every election, local, state, and national, are powerful ways to ensure our concerns are heard. Advocacy groups and senior organizations can amplify our voices, but they need our participation and support to be effective. Finally, we must push for a broader cultural shift that values aging and respects the contributions of older adults. The struggles we face are not just financial, they're deeply tied to how society views and treats its elders. Policies should reflect a commitment to dignity, recognizing that seniors are not a burden, but a vital part of the community. From providing opportunities for lifelong learning to encouraging intergenerational programs, there are countless ways to build a society where aging is seen as a stage of life to be respected and celebrated. These changes won't come easily, and they won't come overnight. But the history has shown that progress is possible when people stand together and demand better. As seniors, we have the wisdom, experience, and resilience to lead this charge. We've spent our lives contributing to this nation, and it's time for that contribution to be acknowledged with policies that support and uplift us in our later years. The road ahead may be long, but it's worth traveling for ourselves, for each other, and for the generations that will come after us. Together, we can ensure that aging in America is not a struggle for survival, but a time of security, dignity, and peace. That is the legacy we should leave behind. That is the change we should demand. A final reflection, a call to resilience and unity. As I reflect on the challenges we face today, rising costs, dwindling resources, and the sense of being forgotten by a system we helped build, I am reminded of the strength and resilience of our generation. We have weathered wars, recessions, social upheavals, and personal struggles. We have raised families, built communities, and contributed to the foundation of this nation. And now, as we navigate the most trying times in our later years, that same resilience must guide us forward. The challenges we face are daunting, but they are not insurmountable. Each of us has the power to make a difference, whether by taking control of our personal finances, reaching out for support, or advocating for the systemic changes we know are needed. Alone, the path may seem overwhelming, but together, we are a force to be reckoned with. Our voices, our stories, and our collective will can inspire the changes that will not only benefit us, but pave the way for a better future for the generations that follow. Let us not be defined by the hardships we endure, but by the strength with which we face them. Let us demand a society that values its elders, not just in words, but in action. A society that honors the years we have given and the wisdom we have to share. Let us support one another, lifting each other up in times of need, and never losing sight of the dignity we deserve. We may not control the winds of change, but we can adjust our sails. Together, with courage and determination, we can ensure that the years ahead are not marked by fear or scarcity, but by the peace, respect, and security we have earned. This is not just about survival. It is about living fully with purpose and pride. That is the legacy we must fight for. That is the future we must create. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with one. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.